Yo, what's good, guys? Long time no talk. Welcome back to Around the A YouTube podcast. Blake Newsom joining my co-host Mike and Neil tonight. It's been a little bit, guys. We're sorry. We promise that's not always going to be the case. We're college students around here. We're trying to figure this stuff out. We both work as well. We know we got lives, but we ultimately still do love Atlanta sports, and that's why the podcast keeps coming back. For those of you that are still listening on whatever platform you may be listening, we really, really do appreciate it. We're going to promise to make these episodes a lot shorter, and that starts today. This episode is going to be probably half as long as some of the usual ones. As you can see, repping the Atlanta Thrashers this evening because hockey is coming back, Mike. I don't know if you heard. It's a story for another day. But tonight, obviously we're talking about the Atlanta Falcons down at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Big offseason that's gone on so far from the guys. Hired a new coach. Quarterback is on the way, we think. Lots of moves to be made. Got to extend some guys to get that cap space. Don't have as much cap space as they did last year. But some things got to go on, and the Falcons got to continue building on what they did last year if they want to turn the ship around. Because unlike their brothers down the street in Tony Wrestler's office, they have no future and they have no promise going on. They just have one player that makes them really good. The Falcons at least have building blocks, and we haven't been able to say that for a long time. So I'll give my golf claps to Arthur Blank, and I will not give my claps to Rich McKay. But claps for finally at least going in the right direction, guys, especially after losing Matt and Julio. But Falcons offseason has started. Yeah, around the A is back, guys. Welcome it. And, Micah, any quick thoughts you want to fire off before we jump into right into the heavy hit and stuff tonight?
Nothing more than what you said. We're gonna try to make the show shorter, more watchable. Like yeah, we're starting that today.
That was a very awkward pause. Promise that'll be the last of that. All right, my friend, I'm actually gonna send this over to you. This was this was your topic idea. So why don't you give the audience, without going too far into detail with all the other stuff we have planned. We're sitting here on March 8th. The season ended late January, with a loss to the team that won't be named. Ultimately, I feel like the Falcons won because their coach was fired, the other coach was retained. But why don't you give the audience a little bit of a rundown of what's happened between now and then, then to now, and what's to be expected afterwards that we'll talk about later in the show. The floor is yours.
Well, first, this is obviously our first show since the season ended. Like Blake said, it's March 8th. A lot has happened from the last game of the season up until now, and a lot is going to happen. Arthur Smith, um, and we're looking for a new quarterback for this team. We have a lot of changes coming for this team, and this the team is moving in a better direction, and we're trying to win games. And this offseason is going to be very important, very crucial for us to get to that point. We want to start winning. We want to start making a play. We're not happy with the negative records, missing the playoffs every year. We haven't made it since 2017, and we're tired of missing it. And um, this offseason is going to either you know be the start, or we're gonna be the start of us getting back to contention, or we're gonna be like the Hawks, having no direction if they get this offseason wrong. So,
Don't even go there. I think you were crackling out a little bit at the end there, but I think for the viewers, you talked about how this is kind of what I was saying. This is a off season where they got to continue to go based off the building blocks they had last year, and kind of continue that on if they want to continue to have a direction and push the franchise in the right way. But a lot of stuff has to be decided so far this offseason. But you already talked about the new regime that's been brought in, so we haven't had a chance to talk about him since we first started coming back onto the airwaves. I'm sorry, I have a friend over in the corner of the room making stupid faces at me. So let's talk about it. The Falcons, of course, officially parted ways with Arthur Smith. FedEx guy goes home. He does end up getting a gig as the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator, which player that we released that we talked about. We'll talk about him later in his role. That might end up being going back to Pittsburgh. Johnny Smith. But the Falcons went in. They hired Probably not their top candidate guy, but will you stop it? Thank you. Sorry about that, guys. They didn't hire their A tier guy, but I honestly think it was a pretty good hire. Push come to shove, because you and I were absolute anti Bill Belichick.
Definitely.
Absolutely not. We could touch on that a little bit for sure. But they officially end on Coach Raw, Coach Heem. It still has to be decided what the official nickname is. But Raheem Morris comes back to Atlanta. His second stint, was previously defensive coordinator after the defensive guru Dan Quinn lost his duties twice in Atlanta, blowing all those leads. Raheem Morris took over as defensive coordinator. Was 4-7 his interim in Atlanta. A couple of those losses to the eventual Super Bowl appearers of the Chiefs and the Bucks at the very end of the year. Won four of his first 5 games as head coach for the Falcons, and ultimately was really not that bad. And he's learned a lot in the 3 years going out to LA, being a full-time defensive coordinator, winning a Super Bowl. And for a defensive mind, he knows a lot more than most, being that he's worked with Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay for so many years. He was the passing game coordinator under Kyle Shanahan before he became defensive coordinator. So this guy knows both sides of the ball. And this guy does have 2 Super Bowl rings to show for it. And so, obviously, a huge part of the fan base is happy that he was brought back. They feel like he deserved the job a couple years ago. And it's definitely ironic to me, and we'll talk about later, the Justin Fields conversation. If Justin Fields ends up being our quarterback, it almost feels like this last 3 years was an absolute waste. Because you ultimately could have hired Raheem Morris 3 years ago. You could have drafted Justin Fields 3 years ago. And who knows? I mean, ultimately, I guess you get Kyle Pitts in that process. But who knows where they're at now if they have those guys. So it's definitely a conversation to be had. But ultimately, I hosted a Twitter space the night it happened. We're sitting here in March. A lot of my thoughts have maybe kind of worn off my initial shockwave of what went wrong. I was just ultimately happy it wasn't Bill Belichick, right? You and I were so against that. In contrast to that, some of the hotshot offensive coordinators like Ben Johnson and Bobby Slowick stay put, which made me like the hire at the end of the day a lot more. And I feel like the NFL itself, the media really loved the hire, from players like Jalen Ramsey to NFL Network. They loved the hire. And all of a sudden, we talked about this before the show. They went from trashing us and still bringing up 28-3 every 5 minutes to now saying, oh, well, the Falcons are 13th in our preseason power rankings and we have them winning the South. No, 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 no. Don't switch up on us now. I mean, we talked about that. But I think that's where we stand. But ultimately, kind of do that little 2-part thing I just did. Where you stand on Raheem today, and where was your initial process going through the hiring, all the second interviews, and how we ended up with getting our guy back.
Well, this was the the search for the head coach was very long, and wasn't something that the coach we hired wasn't the one I expected. We went from Bill Belichick being the front runner, according to multiple sources on Twitter, and a lot of Falcons fan base wasn't happy with that. It was like, if we went the Belichick route, we would have
The
had
stupid
to.
ones were. The
Yeah,
stupid ones were because they see rings. That was about it.
yeah, and it just didn't make sense direction that this franchise is given, that we're so young, and Belichick would have 3 years max before he retired, and that we're not looking for a team right now. We're looking for a team now and moving forward. Would not have made sense to go and get a rental coach, to have to go back out for a search in the next few years. But we went from Belichick being a front runner to them saying Bobby Slowick had a great interview, and they was bringing him back for a second interview. And later that day, we see the news Raheem Morris was hired the head coach, a surprise to a lot of Falcons. I would say everyone. Definitely was not the coach I was expecting him to bring in. Um, Given he was on Dan Quinn's staff, I wasn't very happy with it at first. Um, I was confused. I didn't like it until I started seeing a lot of the NFL community, like Jalen Ramsey, as Blake said, or former Falcons, like Mohamed Sanu, a whole bunch of people in the league saying Raheem Morris is a great coach. You even had Mike Tomlin saying that Raheem Morris is probably one of the best coaches in the NFL without a head coaching job before he got hired, and stuff like that gives me confidence.
Well, we know a little bit of why Tomlin said that. A little bit, but
Stuff like that gives me confidence in what Raheem Morris can do, and we know what type of coach he is. He's gonna he's a player's coach, and he wants to win. He does have a losing record, 21-38 as a head coach. He's put in a bad position with the Buccaneers and even a bad position with the Falcons with Dan Quinn getting fired, and how the team was set. But I wouldn't even judge him off of that because it's not something he can control. But we've seen what he in the been in LA Super Bowl champion. Coached players like Aaron Donald or Bobby Wagner or Jay Ramsey, and he's learned a lot and he has a lot of knowledge around the league. So it's a lot that he could bring to this team, and he wants to win. He's gonna appeal to the players. He's gonna appeal to the his higher ups. He's gonna appeal to the fans. Um, I'm hoping he is our coach for many years to come, with followed by winning seasons.
and before we follow that with the coordinators that he brought in, real quickly, like a minute or two max, take me through what your thought process was when the Belichick stuff was coming out and how we were so against that. I think he has like 2 or 3 career winning seasons all time without Tom Brady under center, and Tom Brady was not walking through those doors in Flowery Branch. If the Falcons hired Bill Belichick, he's not the same guy. There's a reason nobody hired him. But so many people were saying, "Oh, it's going to be Bankhead Bill. It's going to be Magic City Bill. It's going to be Buckhead Belichick." No, 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 no. I was so afraid. Like I have stuck through thick and thin with this franchise as a Falcons fan. I'm not gonna lie, Micah. If we would have hired Bill Belichick, I would have been out. I genuinely would have been like, all right, because you just wasted 3 years. Now you're telling me you're going to waste 3 to 4 more. So I'm out. I'll come back, right? But I'm done. And so I am so thankful that it wasn't Bill Belichick. I was genuinely scared because of the second interview and them doing the love boat on Arthur Blank's yacht. Like that just would have been the worst decision possible. And people are like, oh, he beat you in the Super Bowl, 9 rings. Rings is a team stat. He won what? One of those rings without Tom Brady 25 years ago? Okay. It would have been the same old clown show of Josh McDaniels and his sons and Bill O'Brien, who thankfully did get hired at the college game, so you knew that one wasn't happening. Um, you would have had, what's his face? The guy with the pencil that was with the Eagles last year, the former Lions coach. What's his name?
Matt Patricia.
Matt Patricia. Yeah, Matt Patricia. Like it would have been the whole gang minus Tom Brady coming to Atlanta. That isn't fixing anything. It's really not. If anything, that only empowers teams like the Saints and the Panthers to keep doing what they're doing and eventually surpass us. So I am so glad it wasn't Bill Belichick. That would have been my last straw. That just would have been awful. And Arthur Blank and Rich McKay were really pushing for it. And I was like, guys, and you and I talked about it. We're like, let Terry make this hire, dude. He's working with one arm and one leg behind his back. Let him make the hire. And I think ultimately he won his way. A minute or two max. Give me through your process of what was going on from your point of view regarding the whole Bill Belichick sweepstakes leading to Raheem. Because my God, was it scary.
I mean, we was on the same boat the entire time. Like Bill Belichick would not move the needle at all. Like I was listening to Mike Bell on the radio, talking about Mike Bell and Carl Dukes on 92.9. They was talking about how if you bring an old guy like Bill Belichick, he's gonna
What station?
you
You mean the other station?
if you bring in an old guy like Bill Belichick,
Those who don't know.
he's not gonna change his coaching style for it's worked for him so long. He's not gonna come change it. You hear the Patriot way so much, and he's gonna bring that to the Falcons, and that was nothing. We were not interested in it, and that wasn't anything we needed. All the young guys on the team, talent, and that would have went to waste if we would have got Belichick, and it just worked. And like Blake said, he would have brought in all the staff that has been to not they they've been nothing since Tom Brady has gone. Even Matt Patricia, he's bounced around. Lastly on Eagles, and you see how they season ended, lost first round to the Buccaneers. Um, yeah, I that I would not have liked it at all, and I'm glad we didn't go that way. Glad Rich McKay. Hopefully, the news about him moving from the Falcons to Atlanta United is true, because I don't want him nowhere near the Falcons anymore.
Yeah, they've lied about that many times before, so I don't really trust that, but glad to see it came out from Mike Conti's point of view either way. But yeah, I'll leave this with Belichick. You know, Arthur Smith in his career in Atlanta was 21-30, right? And the 3 years in the same time span since Brady left New England, well, I guess it's, yeah, 4 years. In those 4 years, they had a worse record. Well, yeah, they had that one playoff year in Arthur Smith's first season where they shut us out. But I forget I knew it off the top of my head at the time, but I'm pretty sure they were like 18-30 something since Tom Brady left. Like, and I'll say this: how many teams tried to skin the Patriot way and failed? With Josh McDaniel getting 2 head coaching jobs, with Patricia getting 2 head coaching jobs, with Bill O'Brien going back and forth to college. His sons have kind of stuck by his side because that's all they ever know. But everybody has tried to skin the Patriots, and it just hasn't worked. From Jimmy Garoppolo to, the Robert Kraft cousins. You just can't replicate what Tom Brady and prime Belichick did. That's just no longer the case. The game moves on, and I'm like, it's moved on from him. And I'm so glad that people finally realize that. But they're like, count the rings, 28-3. No, that's not what we're doing here. But glad it wasn't Bill Belichick. What really sold me, though, the night of this hire, Micah, well, it happened a couple days later. We thought that maybe Tampa would steal him for a day or two, and thank God, because, they lost Canales to Carolina, of course. But also great hire, Carolina. Thanks, appreciate it, guys. Um, but Zach Robinson, who's like the next, he a lot of stuff, man. He's a Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay grasshopper, and the fact that he's right in that coaching tree, and he's learned a lot. And they're saying that he is like the next up and coming guy to be a offensive coordinator, guru, coach in the next 5 years. Put Matt LaFleur in that list too. And the Falcons got him super young, which means we're gonna have him for a couple of years. And people are like, he's just gonna leave us in a couple of years. I'm like, most coordinators do anyway. Either they retire, they find a gig for a team that fits them better, or they get fired. So if someone's getting poached for a better job in a couple years, that's a good thing. That means you're doing things right. Look at the Braves right now, Micah, with Ron Washington getting hired elsewhere, with him bringing Eric Young Sr. with him. That's a good sign. That's a good sign right there with Donna Brown, our head of scouting, going to be the new Astros GM. That's a good thing. That means you're doing things right. When have you ever seen, which we'll talk about in a little bit, when have you ever seen guys ever get hired somewhere elsewhere from the Falcons organization that hasn't had another stop, a la Dan Quinn with Dallas the last couple of years, and we know how we still feel with him. It doesn't happen. So this is the step in the right direction. Raheem was able to bring him down from LA. And just like with Raheem, all the love and support from the Rams players, and they were like, you know what? Go shine. You and Raheem, go do big things down there in the 404. And Kyle, Bijan, and Drake all posted both of their hirings. So they're all for it. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
I think this is a slam dunk, and it really took away any of my doubt left in the Raheem Morris hire from the first couple nights. It took it away from me because I'm like, dang, bro, we just got the next hotshot coordinator. So, like, tell me what you know about Zach Robinson. And before we talk about because of course, the X's and O's, he's only been like a pocket passer guy. He's worked with guys like Stafford, Purdy, Ryan, Kirk. Hasn't really worked with guys like Justin or mobile guys like a Lamar Jackson, which of course isn't on the market. He never was last year either. But for the stereotype quarterback, people think the Falcons are leaning pocket passer. But tell me everything you know about Zach Robinson and the time since we've hired him, and how excited are you that he could be our next Kyle Shanahan, hopefully for
Um,
longer.
well, Zach Robinson, he was a quarterback in the NFL from 2010 to 2013, and then he started his coaching career in 2019 as an assistant quarterbacks coach, where he was coaching Jared Goff, and we all know how good Jared Goff was in his Rams days. Him and Patrick Mahomes, you remember high scoring games. One of the best games I've seen, that Rams and Chiefs game back then. And then in 2020, he was a receivers coach, and then and pass game coordinator and a quarterbacks coach for the Rams. So he has a pretty good resume. He's worked with a lot of great talent. Most recently, um, won a Super Bowl in Los Angeles, and even I was listening to 92.9 again as always, uh, where their GM on the radio talking Les Snead was on the radio talking about how good Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson is, and how they're gonna do great things. And he was praising them, talk about how they're great people, great coaches, and things like that make very confident and optimistic about what's gonna happen. And Zach Robinson has a lot of talent here in Atlanta with Drake London, B. John Robinson, Tyler Algier, Kyle Pitts. It's a whole bunch of talent. We just have to get a quarterback position right, and we'll talk about that later in the show. But Zach Robinson, like Blake said, was the top target for offensive coordinators, and we're glad that we was the team in the NFC South to get him.
I think really well put at the end. So yeah, I think I've said everything I want to say. Let's talk about the other side of the ball because the Falcons surprisingly ended up having to hire a defensive coordinator too. I guess the skill set, the scheme fits weren't exactly the same. You and I know how much we loved Ryan Nielsen. He was the first Falcons defensive coordinator since I've started watching that I actually trusted, that I actually enjoyed watching his team play.
Yeah.
Like obviously, I was a little young for Mike Smith. I know he might have had a good coordinator under Mike Smith. I didn't really get to see the X's and O's of the game. I just knew, oh my God, that's Tony Gonzalez first down at that age. I didn't understand the schemes that goes into football like I do now. But Ryan Nielsen put together one hell of a year for the Atlanta Falcons last year. Had a borderline top 10 unit without Grady Jarrett for half the year, with pretty much only one healthy corner, with 39-year-old Calais Campbell, two late round picks at linebacker, and you just put it all together with paying Jesse Bates the bag. And sure, still were some cases last year where the Falcons did lose on a game-losing drive. Now, it wasn't like in years past where they just blew the lead because they couldn't hold it. It's because they had been on the field so long, because now the offense couldn't do anything worth a dang. I think they had the most sacks in a decade of Falcons football. Had over 40 as a team. Now, the last 2 weeks of the season were not pretty. When everything was on the line, they collapsed. But by that point, I feel like the health of the team had caught up to them. But I will still wish Ryan Nielsen his flowers, and I wish him well with Jacksonville. We were very happy when we hired him. We poached him from you-know-who. And as much as we hate them, we know how well that organization is ran. That's why Terry came from them too. And we like to get them because A, you take them away, but B, they know what they're doing. And so Nielsen did a splendid job here in Atlanta. Had us actually sacking the quarterback, had us actually getting stops, had the defense actually winning games. That's something I had never seen in my life as a Falcons fan. I was used to the days of Matt Ryan losing 31-28. Like, that's just the reality of it. That's 34-28. And so the one thing I'm scared of, Micah, is obviously they brought in Jimmy Lake, who's let's just say that his resume isn't the greatest. Now, hopefully it works, but I'll use Mike Bell's best friend, which is a joke, by the way. Him and Mark Zeno hate one another, but I'll use Mark Zeno for this analogy. He was on Sports Talk ATL. Well, shout out to those guys, by the way, too. Shout out Chase and Alex. He was on with them on the show, and he said, guys, if this coordinator isn't the right thing, we're not fixing anything. Because the offense can go from scoring 16 points a game to 25 points a game. But if the defense is going back to giving up 27, we're still having the same issue here, folks. And so that's what's so scary to me because I have been through so much PTSD as a Falcons fan of bad coordinator after bad coordinator after bad coordinator. This team does not know how to hire a defensive coordinator, hence all the blown leads in history. So you finally get one and you let him just walk out the door. I'm a little afraid of that because, and then there's the people that say this, Micah. Why doesn't Raheem call plays? No. Not that Raheem can't call plays, but my last two head coaches both tried to call plays and it didn't work. Dan couldn't do it. Art couldn't do it. Too much on their plate. That's why a lot of coordinators that become head coaches fail. So in that process, I'm okay with Raheem maybe calling third down plays, having input on plays. Yeah, that's fine, but don't have him calling every play. So that's why I wish we still had Nielsen, because I know maybe that fit wasn't perfect, but at least I could trust him to get this defense right. I have a little bit of pain and a little bit of fear in the back of my neck, thinking, oh boy, we're going to go right back to 28, 25 games. Just because Jimmy Lake just doesn't seem like the thing. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd love for you to tell me what you think about him, but, how'd you like that hire in comparison to Zach and Raheem?
This hire, like this hire, had a different feel than the uh, previous two with Zach Robinson and Raheem Morris. Um, Given that, like you said, his resume isn't the best. He's bounced between the NFL and college, and he hasn't had too great of a uh, stint in either one. And like you said, losing somebody like Ryan Nielsen, who had our defense looking like the best I've seen, if in a long time, if not ever, it's just hard to see us go from that, letting him walk to Jacksonville, to a guy like Jimmy Lake with a resume that he has. He's coached with the Bucks, the Lions. He was an assistant head coach with the Rams, and now he's here. So he has history with Raheem Morris, um, with the Rams, and um, I don't know. Like I've said in previous shows, me and Blake will be proud to be proved wrong if he does something positive for us, wins us games, and have us have a great defense. But I can't say I'm too confident in Jimmy Lake and what he's gonna bring here. Looking at what he's done in the past, seeing how they blocked Ryan Nielsen from talks to any teams, or getting an offer from any teams, to when we got close to hiring Raheem, to them letting him go. It was just, I don't understand. I don't think I will understand, but if Jimmy Lake proves me wrong, if he proves us wrong, I promise we'll be happy. But I can't sound confident at this moment.
I think that's a great point that I forgot to mention, being that it's been like 6 weeks. But yeah, when the Falcons all of a sudden let Raheem Morris go to Jacksonville when Schefter was just lying with Pat McAfee, I was like, oh, well, that tells me what we're doing. It's going to be a defensive guy, whether it's I'm starting to forget who the candidates were at this point. You had Mike Vrabel out there. You had Steve Wilkes out there, and it was Bill, and it was Raheem, and then there was one other defensive coordinator. Oh, it was Mike McDonald with the Ravens. It told me that's what the four was, disregarding Belichick. And I didn't think the Falcons would hire another Tennessee guy, being they just, so I'm like, okay, so it's down to McDonald, Raheem, and Wilkes. Well, they had a chance to get Wilkes' DC last year, and they said no. So I'm like, okay, is it going to be a guy they have connection with, or is it going to be the guy they don't have connection with? Also, funny, the Georgia Colt fart of the fart. Well, the Georgia Colt part of the fan base was like Todd Monken, Todd Monken, Todd Monken, just because, as you said, some people want certain people because they look a certain way. Georgia people want people because they had a G on their helmet. Same thing with Todd Monken. That's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that, but yeah, what you said there also at the end is very true, because you said that Nielsen had this defense looking the best we've ever seen it. But that also isn't saying a lot. You know what I mean? Like, we've been burnt so many times. There's a reason we feel this way about this hire because you and I are so traumatized as Falcons fans. Because even this year, the Minnesota game couldn't sack the guy with the game on the line. The Carolina game, the second Tampa Bay game, down in the desert with Kyler Murray. Like that's four right off the bat that I can think about that we blew. As in, like they weren't leads, but you had a chance to get a stop at the end of the game and you couldn't. And then simultaneously, with as bad as Ritter was, he had like 3 or 4 game-winning drives. So like the sack number was there. We had 40 plus, but we were still bottom half of the league. So it's like there's levels to it where like you and I were like, wow, 10 points, we're getting sacks. We're actually like in games. That was cool to us. But then if you look at the numbers on the other side, it's like, okay, still weren't as many sacks as you would like. But Dupree, looking at you. Um, and still were some blown leads at the end of the game. And no matter how many snaps you play, you'd like to get that stop. That was like the only thing I gave them grief for. Like when they lost that second Carolina game and they lost the second Tampa Bay games, I was upset, but it didn't feel like a choke. It felt like the offense let the team down because they had already played for 75 snaps. And so I hope Jimmy Lake proves me wrong, man. But I feel like there were other candidates out there, and Raheem maybe got a little too happy in hiring people that he just previously had worked with. Is there anything else you'd like to add regarding the whole, regime search, I guess you could put it, because we hired 2 coordinators. Oh, also, TJ Yates goes back to wide receiver coach. Splendid, well job. That's the right thing to do. Which I guess it blocks Mohamed Sanu, but I'm sure there'll be another former Falcon that fills a position this summer of some need. Rich McKay, of course, quote, is out of football operations, is now going to continue to screw over Atlanta United, which hasn't been good in like 4 years, but we don't know if that's the truth or not. So that's, some other ground rules to cover. But anything else you'd like to add before we talk about X's and O's of what the team needs to address this summer?
Just adding, Marquise Williams was also retained as a special teams coach. But one thing I have
Great one, by
liked,
the way. Great.
yeah, one thing I have
Oh,
liked,
and Jerry Gray, he's back too. Love that.
yeah,
Do love
yeah.
that.
But a thing I've liked, listening to Terry, Raheem, Zach. I haven't heard anything from Jimmy, but one thing I've liked hearing from them is they're all talking about how they have a collaborative effort in all of this, and it's not just um, Terry thinking he's higher than Raheem, so he's gonna make this decision, or Raheem thinking he's higher than um, Zach, so he's gonna make this decision. And they're all having collaborative efforts, collaborative thoughts, and they're putting their minds together to make the best decision they can. And that's gonna tie in with our next topic. But that's something you like to hear as a fan, and not one guy being stuck up and stubborn and being like, since I'm the GM, I'm gonna make this decision and I'm gonna do what I think is right instead of consulting with who is gonna be working with the player. And one thing I also like, you brought mentioned this about Raheem allowing Jimmy Lake to call the plays. um that's another thing I've liked with you know how, like you said, with Dan Quinn calling plays and Arthur Smith calling plays, that didn't go good for us, and letting Raheem focus solely on being the head coach rather than calling the plays too. I think that's gonna go well for us, and I'm ready to see how it works out for the Falcons in 2024.
I couldn't agree anymore. We went from the collaborative, we went from the variable element, no fantasy football era to collaborative effort era. One thing you forgot to mention, the 2 most important opinions in the room, Micah, of course, Ryan Pace and Rich McKay. Without further ado, we'll move on to actual football news. Of course, I hope that the last part I'm hoping is not the truth. Obviously, right, you and I thought this team was going to be a playoff team last year. Part of it was the schedule, right? And part of it was the additions. But we learned this year the old tale of you're only as good as your quarterback. And the Falcons did not have a single serviceable quarterback on that roster. Not Logan Woodside, no. Not Felipe Franks, no. Not Desmond Ritter, no. Not even Taylor Heineke. There was no serviceable quarterback play on this roster. One thing that I don't appreciate about Arthur Smith, though, is the carousel he put us in. When he benched Ritter that first time, I thought it'd be it. And then a couple games later, Heineke gets hurt. He goes back to Dez for the Saints game that we were at, which we won. Awesome. But then you decide not to go with Ritter again. And it comes back to Taylor for Christmas Eve. I'm there versus the Colts. He wins the game. Awesome. He ends up getting hurt versus Chicago in a stinker performance. And you're back to Dez before Logan Woodside's throwing pick sixes at the end of the year in New Orleans. And they were playing ludicrous as they walked off the field as Jameis was punching it in. Like, awful, man. Like, that was their backup quarterback. Like, we denied it at the time, Micah, but it was true. The Saints' backup quarterback was better than our starter. And that's why we were so happy to face Derek Carr that Sunday in Atlanta than Jameis, because we knew Jameis would have found a way to beat us. We just know. But put it this way. This is the most important decision in this rebuild window. Not firing Dan Quinn and then eventually Arthur. Not having to let go of Matt and Julio. Not finally being able to do with salary cap money for the first time. This is the most important decision of this rebuild, because this is either going to set it, like, we think we got the head coach right, ka-ching. We think we at least got the coordinators okay, ka-ching. But we learn you're only as good as your quarterback. Even Bill Belichick doesn't look that good without Tom Brady, right? We're not saying we're going to draft Tom Brady. Well, nobody really thought they were going to draft Tom Brady either, granted, 200th pick. But 199 for those counting at home. But they have to get this decision right. And the reason I say decision is we don't know what they're going to do. They might trade for somebody, they could sign somebody, they could draft somebody. But that's all you need to know about this team, is you're only going to be as good as your quarterback. We learned that this year. We thought that team last year was a cakewalk 10 wins, because we thought we'd at least get a serviceable game management from Taylor or Dez. Neither of them were that at all. To be honest, we didn't think the defense would be as good as it was either. And we still found a way to end up at 7-10. So it's like, no matter what we do, we're going to be sitting here next year 7-10, and Arthur Blank's going to be officially under 500 in his career ownership as Atlanta Falcons chairman. But ultimately, man, like, this is just such a hard topic for me and you, because we grew up with Matt, and the people older than us, they saw Vic too, and so they saw two of them, and they saw how good they were. But even those guys couldn't bring this city to promise. I feel like the team is built to win. And you and I have known each other for years now. You and I used to have this conversation years ago. We said that the quarterback is probably going to be the last piece to this team. The way that Terry's building it, in a couple of years, we're going to be getting the quarterback last. A lot of people get that quarterback and they build around it, like what the Bengals did with Burrow, like what the Texans are doing with Stroud. It works that way, but I feel like it can also work this way. But you have to get it right, because then you get the quarterback on that rookie deal while you got everybody else getting paid around him. Makes his job easier. So it can be both ways, but they have to get this right. And Micah, I'm going to let you list off all the candidates for our viewers, and we'll give a quick recap of how we want it to play out.
All right. So first we have the who all of the media think is the front runner and Falcons' first option, and Kirk Cousins. Which makes sense given Zach Robinson's history with quarterbacks with Matt Stafford and Jared Goff. But then we have Justin Fields, who a lot of people started off the offseason thinking was the Falcons' first option via trade with the Bears. That steam has worn off and starting to look like a lot of teams are moving away from trading for Justin Fields. And then we have options in the draft. Well, before I get there, we have another option with the Broncos recently cutting Russell Wilson. Broncos country, let's ride, whatever. But he recently got cut. And then we have options in the draft, like if we want to trade up to the number one pick, if they're bold and ready to take a risk, we could trade up for Caleb Williams if the Bears are willing to trade the pick. We have the second option, like Drake May, the second best quarterback in the draft, if they're also willing to trade up for him. And then we have another option, Jaden Daniels, who a lot are saying that is the third best quarterback in the draft. And one name that's picking up steam, thanks to Harbaugh, JJ McCarthy. I think it's a lot of smoke. I don't I don't see the the talent or whatever he's trying to push. But um, his name has been getting a lot of he's been moving up the charts lately, according to Mel Kiper. He's currently the third quarterback in the draft right now, but we'll see how that goes. It's a lot of options out there for the Falcons, and um, the Falcons just have to get it right. We can't risk another we can't have a bridge season. We can't risk getting the quarterback wrong again. We can't risk developing a quarterback. We it's win now, and we're building for the future, but we're also winning now. So we have to get the quarterback position right now.
All right, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna give you realistic, of course, as we always are here. My top want for quarterback all the way down. So in my list, I'm not even going to include Caleb Williams because I just don't see the Falcons trading him for one. I think he's a bear, and if not, I think there's other teams that are more desperate than us. Just because their organization has shown wants to trade up. I can't think of the last time the Falcons traded up was Julio, and I wasn't really that in tune at that point yet. So like I've never seen them trade up before. I've only seen them trade up slow margins before, and it was to pick guys like Tack McKinley over TJ Watt. So I don't really want to relive that. You know what I mean?
Caleb
But
McGarry.
well, that kind of slow. One thing I would thank Arthur for is he did kind of turn Caleb McGarry's career around. And thank you, Terry, for only giving him a 2-year deal because that means he can be out of here as soon as next year again if he goes back to what he was. But here's my list, right, Micah? See, I kind of disagree with you on the part of Drake May, Jaden Daniels. I'm still trying to kind of be more educated to what, but in my opinion, I feel like Jaden is probably the third quarterback taken, second best quarterback in the draft. You know what I mean? And so right now, for me, he's number one. Justin for me is number two. But I understand the reason to not. We talked about this earlier. Could have picked him 3 years ago. And by Jaden, I hope he falls to 8. This is not including like a trade up for me. So for same thing for when I list Drake later, I hope it's like a number 8 situation. Because hopefully by the draft, we'll know that somebody will be at 8 or not regarding who trades up with who, regarding how pro days are, regarding how the JJ McCarthy narrative is by then. So keep that in mind. But again, I got Jaden 1, Justin 2, Drake 3. Pretty close between 2 or 3. Like those are my top 3 options, of course. Like that's who I love. Kirk Cousins, I can live with. But other steps in the process have to be taken if you're going to sign Kirk Cousins. It can't be crazy money, and you got to add more than one quarterback at that point because he's coming off an Achilles heel. Micah, people don't even know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be back to start the season. He tore his Achilles week 1, September 11th. Kirk's tore his in November. He's probably not going to be back. I'm going to be honest. And we kind of know what Kirk Cousins is. He's never been in an NFC Championship game. Love him. I think he was awesome on the Netflix show Quarterback last year. I think he's had an uptick in his career the last couple of years. I think he's better than what he was when he first got to Minnesota with Washington. But I'm not loving hearing that that's the Falcons' number 1 choice. Now, those are the guys I can live with. Anything below that, I'm like, 2. And that includes Russell Wilson, which I get the league minimum thing. No. If Sean Payton couldn't fix him, and all that capital the Broncos traded, it's because the Broncos are stupid and Sean's stupid. No. You don't get cut in the NFL for no reason unless you got in trouble. And he might be a dork, but he's not in trouble with the law. So stay away from him. And then a rookie I haven't mentioned yet is Penix. Like, I don't really want Penix, but if that's who we're having to choose at number 8, it's better than JJ McCarthy or Bo Nix. But at that point, I feel like we're screwed because that's my next two. Like that's my top 6, right? I named the top 3. Kirk I can live with. Russ and Penix, I'm like, at this point we're kind of getting desperate. And anything past here, we've already messed up, and it's already just too bad, so sad. And that includes JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, Desmond Ritter. That's my 9. And if Caleb was in there, I'll put him right there with Jaden and Justin to make it 10. But that's kind of where I stand. You, any rebuttals or?
Well, in a perfect world, Caleb Williams would be my number 1. Um, he wouldn't need time to develop behind anybody, and like he's ready to play now. But the Bears would be stupid to trade that pick, but the Bears are stupid, so you can't never say never. But yeah,
They're
not
more stupid
counting,
than the Falcons, which takes a lot, but they are. You're right. So
but not counting the Bears, my number one would also be Jaden Daniels. His size scares me, but he has the talent. Um, he's a great player, great person. Um, he said at combine he wasn't playing at the combine because he wanted NFL scouts to go to his pro day so his teammates could get more recognition. And having a team player like that, that would be amazing. And I already know Atlanta would love to have Jaden Daniels here. Um, so he would be my number one. Justin Fields would be my number two. And the thing with Justin Fields is, I think he's just lacking confidence. He has the talent, he has the skill. It's just if you look at him play, he second guesses himself, his reads a lot, and that hurts his play, and he holds on to the ball too long, and he ends up getting sacked. Yes, his protection in Chicago was pretty bad. His offensive coordinators were pretty bad. Had players running the exact same routes right beside each other, uh, but at the same time, he had open players where he would second guess himself, double pump the pass, second guess, hold on to the ball too long, and that results into sacks. And if the Falcons do end up trading for him, uh, I'm confident in Zach Robinson and Raheem Morris restoring his confidence, and I'm confident in the Falcons with getting him help, protecting him, and we have the weapons for him. Um, and then my number three would be Kirk Cousins. Um, so our top three is the same, I believe. Um, Kirk Cousins, he scares me with his he's coming off an injury. He's old. He wants a lot of money. He's older. I'm sorry, and he wants a lot of money. And I'm not willing to give him that type of money, given what the injury he's coming off of, and on top of his age. And then Blake went to 4 or 5 all the way up. I'm just saying, if it's not anyone in that top three, I don't want it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want nothing to do with it. If they don't get somebody in that top three, then we messed up and we didn't get the quarterback position right. The only exception I would take with the Falcons getting Russell Wilson will be if we draft Jaden Daniels for Russell Wilson to be a teacher for Jaden Daniels. Bring in Russell Wilson on a minimum deal, and have him teach. But today we had news that Russell Wilson was with Arthur Smith today in Pittsburgh. They had a great meeting. They was talking for hours. He stayed at the
he's an
facility for
Arthur
hours.
Smith system quarterback. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and
So
it looks like he's on his way to Pittsburgh. But yeah, if it's not anyone that top three, the Falcons got it wrong, and we're gonna have another Desmond Ritter like season for the offense.
oh, please no. One thing I will say, Saints fans will absolutely love it if Jaden Daniels becomes an Atlanta Falcon. So I kind of want it for that reason. And it's also you hear that Caleb Williams was a diehard Packers fan growing up. Ironic, he might get drafted to the Bears because you can go look at his tweets and he has a bunch of mentions about the Packers. So that's interesting. Um, so let's have this mini discussion here. I kind of want to leave the rookies. So Drake, Jaden, Caleb, even Michael, JJ, Bo. Push all them, Spencer Rattler for those counting at home. Push all them down the drain. We're talking just guys that are already in the league here, specifically Justin and Kirk, because those are two very likely candidates. Because I feel like one of those two is going to happen. I feel like the Falcons are realizing that they're probably not going to get who they want at 8, and they're going to end up taking the best player at another position that they need, which hopefully is an offensive this time, right? But we'll do more drafts those in the future. So let's have this discussion real quick, Micah. Justin Fields and Kirk Cousins, head to head. There's pros and cons to each, right? A, here's where I stand. Zach Robinson has worked with pocket passers, specifically Kirk Cousins. So I like Kirk Cousins for that fact. You know that things would work. He's gonna get you to the playoffs. He might not get you far in the playoffs, but after not making it for 6 years, getting there's an accomplishment for the Falcons. And so I know for a fact that Kirk Cousins can at least improve things here, right? Cons to that, he's the same age as Matt Ryan was when we dumped him to Indianapolis, which was wrongfully doing so, getting a bridge quarterback to a bridge quarterback. and Marcus and Dez. So no more bridge quarterbacks. We've done that the last 2 years. Should have just kept Matt at that point. So he's the same age, and I don't think he's as good as Matt Ryan was. He's coming off an Achilles. Matt Ryan never suffered an Achilles tear. So I don't know, man. And plus, he wants big money. It sounds like he wants 40 million a year. We don't have the cap space for that. It would put us right back into a bad situation. We got to pay AJ. We got to pay Kyle next year. No, no. But I do understand the fact that he has accomplished a lot more than Justin, and Zach has worked with him. So I understand that Zach would probably be able to work better with him, and I know what he would be capable of with Drake and with Kyle and whatever other receivers we had. I'm sure Bijan will still be a threat out of the backfield as well. But for Justin, right, the other side of the coin is you got to trade for him, but he probably costs you a lot less. Now that's for the first year or two. You could probably fifth year option him, and my guess is you probably tag Kyle next year and tag him as a tight end, and you're probably fifth year Fields, right? And then he gives you 2 years to know, and you should know within 2 years if he's your guy or not. And he probably won't cost you as much, so we think. Probably a second, probably a third, and probably a depth player. Honestly, that's really not that bad of a thing, as long as that player is not AJ or Kyle Pitt. But the thing with Justin is you got to pay him, and as you said, Micah, like he hasn't really proven anything at all. Like I feel like he has the most broadest NFL wide takes. Some people think he's one of the greater quarterbacks, like Justin Herbert, and some people think he's doo doo. Like his opinions are so ranging because we truly don't know because the Chicago Bears do not know what a quarterback is. And the Falcons have him for the last 2 years, and we don't want it to last 100 years like theirs is. So for us, I don't know, man. I feel like that's what it's coming down to, but I'm so torn because one, you know what you're getting, but you got to pay a lot, but he fits better. The other one, you don't got to pay it first, but he hasn't proven it, but you got to trade for him. But he's the hometown kid. But then Kirk's family's from here too. Like his wife is from here. So like, I'm just still stuck in the middle between these two NFC North quarterbacks. Would you mind, I guess, giving your 2 cents on that whole situation before we move on to everything else?
I mean, with Kirk Cousins, like we said, his age is up there. He's coming off of once before a career-ending injury, but with all the new technology and medicine and doctors and all that, it's not. But it's still an injury that could change your career. And given the amount of money he also wants to keep, I mean, it's I don't think it's worth it to take a risk on him. Yes, he's a Zach Robinson type of player. Has connections here, and we have weapons for him, but it's a risk. And how many games will he be able to play? Will he be ready for the beginning of the season? Um, is he willing to take less money to win? And we've seen how Kirk Cousins is in the big games, and he's never been a big game player. Uh, So I don't know if the risk is worth it for Kirk Cousins given his history and even his present with his injury and age. And with Justin Fields, like you said, it's so many ranging opinions and takes on him. Uh, from being having potential to be a great quarterback to you know not not being what anybody not being a starting quarterback. And it's just he's shown flashes of both, honestly, and um, we want to see from his best flashes. We want to see that be the way he permanently plays if the Falcons trade for him, and I think that's the better risk to take. With his market going down, less teams wanting to trade for him. With all the news coming out, I think it would take less to trade for him than it would have at the beginning of the offseason. And like you said, we won't be paying him a whole bunch of money right now. Give him a prove it in 2 years that he deserves to be paid, and we could go from there. And I think out of the players that's in the league right now, Justin Fields would be our best option. Um, given given his potential and what we would have to pay him and the weapons he have around him. Because the Falcons can protect him. And the Falcons have weapons like Drake London, B. John Robinson, Pitts, Algier. We have weapons around him. and he has competent coaches in Atlanta, and um, where he be in a city where we were at one point used to winning football games. So and he be in his hometown, so he'd be comfortable. So I think Justin Fields would be the best option that's out of the players that's already in the league for the Falcons.
When he was a middle schooler, we won games, and when he was a middle schooler, we were in elementary school. Yeah, he was probably a high schooler when we made the Super Bowl, but yeah. So two things, before we move on. A, we're in that QB purgatory, Micah, that we didn't want to be in for so long. When we had Matt Ryan, and we couldn't decide when to give up on him, being that they didn't, get the pieces and get somebody behind them. They're in where they didn't want to be, and that's QB purgatory. And as Raheem said at the combine, probably wouldn't be standing here if they had a quarterback. Arthur would probably be head coach right now. So that's crazy. But you want to know why I ultimately think it's going to be Kirk, and I hope I'm wrong. It reminds me that you're going to think this is crazy. You know when LeBron went out to LA that whole summer, and everyone's like, "Oh, we just saw Savannah driving with Bryce out on Venice Beach," and "Oh, I just saw LeBron and Savannah just signed up Bronny James for whatever school he went to," and "Oh, he's shopping for houses in Beverly Hills." And it all kind of connected to, yeah, he's clearly going to the Lakers, right? He's not that or the Clippers. So the Lakers. He's not going to the Clippers. Um, that's what's going on with Kirk right now. Him and his wife are buying a house in Georgia. You know, they I don't know. They saw one of his brothers with Kirk in a neighborhood the other day over near Country Club of the South. I think it's happening, man, and I'm okay with it for the right price, for the right price and the right amount of
Absolutely.
years, for the right price. But and I don't want to. I kind of want to drop this as an Easter egg for the next show, which we'll do next week, right, Michael? We'll do this next week. Um, to get Kirk Cousins, you also got to sign Gardner Minshew. You need someone to make sure he's healthy and he's the most stable backup out there. I feel like if you also draft a rookie, you need Gardner Minshew because you don't want Dez being QB2. You want him being QB3 clip holder, being an active scratch. And so you need to sign more than one quarterback because you're getting rid of Heineke. We'll talk about that later. Maybe we might not even get to it at this point. But that's what I'll leave it at for the quarterbacks. I think it's going to come down to Justin or Kirk. Would love a rookie, but if it's Kirk, you also got to add Gardner Minshew. And I made a tweet about that the other day, and I'm sure you saw it. But let's move on. We'll go through quickly here. We'll go through some house cleaning stuff first. And officially 5 days, unless to a shocker to us, Calvin Ridley is probably going to officially become a third-round pick. You and I were so hopeful that it would become a second. He somehow, some way, scratched his way to 1,000 yards as a wide receiver too, with 2 years out of the league, and they lost T-Law there at the end of the year, and somehow, some way he got there. So, props to you, Calvin. Really, proud of him. He'd been out of the league. You and I know, like we were against trading him the whole time, and so it sucks for him that he's no longer here. I love him and I love Foy, and I'm jealous that Duval County has them and Nielsen. They're all taking our guys. I can't win in Jacksonville, whether it's my college team, whether it's my pro team. I just can't win down there. But yeah, I know you like that one. But it appears in 5 days, probably 4 days by this comes out on League New Year, the 4-year anniversary of COVID. We'll say March 13th, 2024. Calvin Ridley will officially be a free agent, if not extended before then. And the Falcons will receive a third-round early comp pick for him, which can be used in a trade for Justin or L'Jarius Sneed, whoever it may be. Also, one of the first re-signs, which I absolutely love. They get the landmine, the South African U.S. troop reserve kid back, Nate Landman. Awesome year last year filling in for Troy Anderson. You and I were banging on the table and need another linebacker. Need another linebacker. We were dumb. We didn't need Rashawn Evans. We didn't need Deion Jones back. We had Nate Landman the whole time. We didn't know
Yes,
it, but we
sir.
but we had him. So shout out to him. Glad he's back. Him and Caden had hell of a years. Johnny Smith got cut, which I didn't think was coming, but then I learned about his cap hit and it makes sense. I kind of wish he was still on the team for the reason that I want Kyle taking more wide receiver reps just to make sure he gets going, and it helps Drake. And having Johnny on the roster allows Kyle a better spot to take wide receiver reps because I don't think Nicole Pruitt's coming back with Arthur's gone, John Fitzpatrick. So it kind of was a little scary to me. So I don't know. I feel like whatever quarterback comes in here would love to have Johnny and Kyle because Johnny did not have a bad year. His stats are maybe a little inflated by Arthur's use of him, but he did not have a bad year. And you and I were happy when we traded for him. For the seventh rounder, honestly, it was worth it. It really was. And he did end up signing with the Dolphins, from what I heard, like 30 minutes ago, which it didn't happen 30 minutes ago, but I found out 30 minutes ago while you were talking. And so he's not going to be a Steeler, which makes sense. They got Darnell Washington and Fryermuth there. So Arthur's got his little tight ends. He's got his running backs too with Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. So get Russ, and he's going to be all nice and happy. They really went from Matt Canada to Arthur Smith. That's crazy. But those are some house cleaning things. Now let's continue to talk about potential cuts, just knocking these all out, and I'll allow you to in a second to talk about your thoughts on Nate, thoughts on Jonnu, and potential cuts. Pulling up our current guys, of course, Jonnu was already the first one. Heineke, I think, is like owed 6 or 7 million. That's obviously going to free up more money. Apparently, extending AJ Terrell actually gets you more money because it pushes his cap hit back. So the Falcons are trying to clear up as much cap space as possible so they can sign Kirk Cousins to a deal he wants and also have room to do more. But looking at current cut candidates, if you wanted to list some of the ones that you sent me in your notes earlier, some of the other ones that you think are obvious to, they already brought back Ryan Newsel as well, which is interesting to me. A little early. I guess that means Hennessy's probably gone. But other than like Heineke and I'm trying to think what others, Johnny was already like, what are some obvious cut candidates you see on the roster?
It's it's a lot of that goes into the cuts with money and um the, the money you get with Taylor Heineke. You cut him, you get around 6 million, 6 or 7 million from cutting him. He's guaranteed 6 million with a I think $14 million contract.
Yeah, it's kind of
um
like what they did with Marcus. Similar concept.
and you got what you call him, John Smith. His cut saved the Falcons um 6.5 mil, and you have the receiver room is very 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 thin right now. But you have somebody like Josh Ali, he could be cut, and it's a lot. Is Lyman that's like I think Catavia Street is also another potential cut if he's not already a free agent. Uh, like I said, it's a lot that goes into it with how depending on how much money the player is making. But I think Taylor Heineke is number one on the list at this point to the top of the list to be cut, given how he played this season and the money he would be owed if he's kept on the roster.
Good stuff. And I kind of want to keep this for next week too, but I'll just list our current guys that are in for agency now. And we'll save this for next week. All right, we'll save this for next week of who we want to bring back and why. And I'm sure they'll probably make up some. They'll make some decisions between now and the 13th. But our current free agent list includes Hefe Jeff Okuda, Calais Campbell, CP Cordero Patterson, Bud Dupree, Beef Keith Smith, Van Jefferson, big ol' Scotty Miller, Trey Flowers, the tight end corner, Mac Hollins, Contavious Street, as you mentioned, Matt Hennessy, which I think is probably gone with the Ryan Newsel signing, being you still have Dahlman on a rookie deal, and Cordero Hodge. Now, a couple of guys I can pretty much rule that probably aren't coming back that were strictly Arthur Smith guys includes Cordero Hodge, Keith Smith, probably Mac Hollins, and Hennessy by default. But, again, I don't want to go fully into this, but I'd love to bring Cordero back, love to bring Calais back for the right price, of course. Like, I made this tweet before. Like, they have a roster spot ready and waiting for him if they want to be back here. And as you said, man, we got like 3 wide receivers on the roster right now. It's Drake, it's Josh Ali, and I forget who the other one is. I think it might be like Frank Darby or somebody. But, like, that's
Um,
it. That's all we got. What's up?
I was just gonna say is Josh Ali, Austin Mack, and Chris Blair, Drake London.
Who?
I've
Like,
never I've never heard of Austin Mack, whoever that is, or Chris
me
Blair.
either. And you and I are like degenerates. We know the practice squad and everything. So where do those guys go? They weren't CFL guys that Terry brought in. They weren't undrafted free agents. Who are you people? It's like
They they
SpongeBob and
they
Patrick.
must have brought in on a or something.
They must have what?
They must have been brought in on a futures deal at the end of the season or something.
Yeah, yeah, because we also got that fullback last year that comes in this year, right? So we'll have to see
Hmm.
how that goes. Because I mean, I guess Parker Hesse's not a free agent. I got to think he's a cut candidate then because he was an Arthur Smith guy. I love Hesse, but probably, well, maybe because maybe they just instate that fullback and they say we'll save the money on beef, but he is a fan favorite, so maybe he's brought back. But if that's the case, there's no reason to have Hennessy. You got those two fullbacks because Fitzpatrick, we're thinking might turn into a fullback role, but no, because you lost Johnu and you lost McCole. So Fitzpatrick for the Georgia fans is probably going to play some impactful, like Lee Smith like snaps next year. It's kind of interesting how this is already looking. But well, next week we'll go over free agents for what they haven't done, and we'll also talk about the backup plans to what we know more about Kirk Cousins by that point, which I think really does include Gardner Minshew. I feel like Gardner Minshew has to be in the cards for the Falcons regarding a lot of things because you need more than one quarterback. So anything else you'd like to add regarding Nate or Janu or even the Calvin pick before we talk about the biggest thing this team needs to address, other than quarterback, of course?
Feel like you touched on it all, but one thing I want to say is Calvin Ridley. If his pick does not convert into a second round pick, if you want to come back to Atlanta, Calvin, we will take you. We will take you. We will take you. Um, I got your jersey. I want you back in Atlanta. I want to see you winning games. I want to see you happy in Atlanta. So if you want to come back to Atlanta, we will take you with open arms.
Pretty much the best wide receiver too you can have in the league. You know, just well, if you feel like you're unsafe, get you a house in Sandy Springs, move down the street from Grady, he'll protect you. That's your big bro. Grady will protect you. Move into Sandy Springs. If you want to move all the way out to Flowery Branch, ain't nobody touching you out there. Well, I don't want to go there, but obviously the gambling thing's a whole issue. But ultimately, I would love Calvin Ridley back too. I was hated that we moved off of him in the first place. So we'll spend about the last 10 minutes on the show on this, Micah, on other things the team needs to address. I think the most necessary move, of course, is quarterback. Like that has to be solved. Obviously, it might not be the first thing they do, but it's like the most important one, and I would try to solve first. But even that has roadblocks because it's like, do you want to wait for the draft to sign Kirk or trade for Justin and see if a quarterback falls? And if they don't, if it doesn't fall that night, then do you trade for the guy? But then after the draft, the value might shoot back up because now the picks are a whole year away and guys are already off the board. So that's a whole other mishmash there. But let's talk about the other big needs that this team needs, and it's the same stuff every year with this franchise. Now it's quarterback. For years, it's always been edge rusher, and other than quarterback, like a dominant edge rusher is like the most important part of a team. And this team hasn't had it other than 1 year of Vic Beasley since like John Abraham. So you know, the floor is yours, brother.
Uh, like Blake said, I think the um number one area that we need to address other than quarterback is defensive end. There's a lot of good defensive ends out there, like Brian Burns, um, who recently got franchise tagged, but he's still allowed to negotiate contracts with other teams. The Panthers have a chance to match it. Um, what's it? Danielle Hunter, free agent. Chase Young, on a cheap deal, free agent. Um, Blake was talking about him a lot of last season. Marcus Davenport is also a free agent. Um, so a lot of good defensive ends out there that we can bring in uh, for cheap that could have great production. But I would say my number one defensive
I
end.
completely forgot about Davenport, by the way. I completely forgot that whole conversation. I thought you were talking about the guy that also got traded from to Washington. I was like, no, he got extended. I'm like, no, Blake, that's a completely different person. But yeah, I was all against Davenport last year. He kind of proved it a little bit more in Minnesota this year for the right deal. Sure, we'll talk. You can't be worse than Bud Dupree was. Go
But
ahead.
my number one, if we was to get a top defensive end, which I think we need to get, is Danielle Hunter. Go all out, get that top guy, get a beast on defense. Give Grady Jarrett some help. He's been here, he's been loyal, and he's been fighting. He's been fighting through the triple teams, still getting sacked through triple teams. He's been here from day one. He's been loyal from day one, and get him some help. We brought in Jesse Bates last year. We drafted AJ Sorrell, got him some help in the secondary. I give him some help on the defensive line. We thought, but Dupree was going to be the Bud Dupree and Calais Campbell, and we got him some pieces that was gonna really like move the needle. We got more sacks in previous years, but they really didn't move the needle like a Danielle Hunter will. And
The Hawks won. That's a whole different story. Stop winning, guys. You already had your time to win. Your season's over. Stop winning, damn it. They just beat the Grizzlies for their fourth straight win. Hawks, tank properly. You're doing just like this team we're talking about right now. Y'all lose all year, and then when your year's over, you start winning and you end up in purgatory. Stop it. Tank, 11 seed. No playing, no lottery. You hear me? All right, back to the Falcons.
but yeah, I would go with Danielle Hunter if they want to go all out, get him some help. I think the safety is also one of the least talked about but needed positions for us to go to get. Richie Grant was a disappointment, and I don't want to waste another season trying to see if he's gonna turn into the player that we think he can be. It's a lot of great safeties that's
Should
out
have
there
drafted
now.
Asante Samuel over him. Yep.
Yeah,
Also
it's a
about.
lot of great safety that's out there for the Falcons to get with all the cuts in free agency. Got Xavier McKinney, Justin Simmons, Jordan Poyer, Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams, Eddie Jackson, Micah Hyde, Jordan Whitehead, CJ Gardner Johnson, Jordan Fuller, and the list goes on and on and on. So many great names out there, and that the Falcons can add, and all of those players aren't getting big contracts. We don't have to bring in a big contract guy. It's a whole bunch of great names out there that could they would come to Atlanta to win. A lot of players would want to come to Atlanta to play with Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell. And another position on defense that I would say needs help is the obviously the cornerback position with it being thin, with Jeff Okuda also being a free agent. It's names out there like Kendall Fuller, Xavier Howard, Darius Williams, Chidobe Awuzie, Stephon Gilmore, and it's the see it's very a lot of names, a lot of to add, and right deal, the right amount of money, we can stack this defense up and uh, build a defense that like Ryan Nielsen said so much that bends but don't break, and um, we want to limit the bending too. So and on offense, the most obvious other than quarterback is the receivers. We need at least two more receivers. Um, to help out Drake London and even Kyle Pitts when he lines up at receiver sometime. We need like I'm saying, Calvin Ridley, come back to Atlanta, man. Come back. We'll take you. Got Calvin Ridley out there, Marquise, Hollywood Brown, Darnell Mooney, Gabe Davis, Tyler Boyd, Curtis Samuel, Odell Beckham Jr. It's a lot of receiver names out there too that's out there for the Falcons to go after. And I think a Gabe Davis, Darnell Mooney, or Tyler Boyd would be very interesting for a receiver too. Uh, a lot of people I've been saying a lot of people do not think Drake London could be a receiver one, but Drake London has all the tools to be a receiver one. He has the speed, he has the size. He's gonna go up and catch a ball over any defender, any game.
If he put
He
up those stats and that
with
QB and
Desmond
that
Ritter.
yeah, and that wide receiver room around him when we thought Matt Collins was going to be a two, and we thought Scotty Miller was going to be a two, and he was still an 1,000-yard receiver without Kyle Pitts getting use. Hell yeah, he's a wide receiver one, and we learned that Ridley is not a one, but he's a two. So put them together and bang, there you go.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to see from the beginning before we wanted. I mean, before we traded Calvin Ridley, I wanted to see Drake London with Calvin Ridley. I wanted to see how that was going to work, and unfortunately, he was traded before that. But Calvin Ridley, please come back to Atlanta to
Terry's
win
playing
some
chess.
games.
Terry's playing chess. He's getting that third rounder, trading him for Fields, getting Calvin Ridley back, and then Fields gets Drake and a third rounder that could be another wide receiver and Calvin. All right, and then I wake up. But let me end it on this. Let me end it on this, Micah. Let me end it on this. I love that whole recap you did. I think some of the obvious ones is of course cornerback. Like they're gonna have to sign another corner. I think you got to extend AJ, which moves your cap back as long as it's not an overpay. Because I think as Dylan, former co-host of the show, said before, he's a good corner, not a great corner. So play him good money, not great money. And it is definitely a buzzkill that Mike Evans is still in the division and he has to continue to guard him. There was about a 24-hour period where we thought Mike Evans and Brian Burns might be out of the South. Nah, they're not going anywhere. But
And that,
they're definitely
don't
gonna.
don't
They're
wanna don't wanna miss though. AJ Terrell did clap Mike Evans in one game this season.
but we
One
lost. So
just just giving him his flowers. He's
yes,
AJ
yes.
Terrell has those games, but last season he was pretty good. Other than
And I,
when DeAndre Hopkins put him in a whole chokehold. We're not gonna talk about that though.
yeah, and I'll say this: Mike Evans is a lot more likable than most of the other. Like, I mean, DJ Moore wasn't really like hated in our division until he did that Hail Mary. But like Michael Thomas is gone. I don't really hate Olave yet because we haven't had like a battle. But like I'm not gonna lie, I've never really had a hate towards Tampa. I just hated Brady. So like now that Brady is retired, like obviously it sucked to lose to Tampa, but I just feel like they're just a divisional team. Like I hate Charlotte because they're close to us. They're a day drive distance. You can go to Charlotte for the day or for the weekend, and they're like little brother to us, which they're not anymore because we've split the last 4 years. But like that's like little brother that wants to be us. Like they want Falcons, Panthers to be, and then there's obviously we mention them every 5 minutes, the Saints. And we're going to mention them again before the end of the show. That's the big rival. So Tampa was mostly there because of Brady. Anyways, I don't want to run too long. But last thing for the night for you guys. But yes, obviously I think they're going to have to add a corner. Whether it's via the trade market, whether it's via the free agency market. I'd love Snead. I think it eventually happens, even if it's not this year. I think Snead is a future Falcon. His agency is based in Atlanta. He followed AJ Terrell for whatever the people that do on social media things. They did follow each other a couple of days ago. Um, and he did get tagged. And so I think if he's a Chief next year, it's his next year in Kansas City, or it's his last year in Kansas City. So I think a corner happens because I love Clark, but Clark cannot be a corner too. He's too small. He's my height. I'm 5'8". I can't be out there guarding 6'4" guys. I can't. He probably can't either. So, I mean, he had perfect defense on Chris Olave in week 18, and Olave just bopped it up to himself for a New Orleans voodoo touchdown. Like, that just can't be happening. So, you need to put him in the slot. And he can probably be better than what Brian Poole was, honestly. And Poole was pretty good. So, Kuda's a free agent. D. Alfred's a free agent. I don't know if he's brought back. I don't know if he's more of a Terry or Arthur guy. We'll find out this offseason. Akuda, had the great start of the year, but then got benched. Mike Hughes, Trey Flowers, bye. So just like the wide receiver room, they have a lot of open needs at corners. So that's definitely going to happen. Same with the wide receiver, obviously, but I think that's more of like a diverse attack. I think they attack it some in the draft, some in free agency. We probably sign one guy like a Gabe Davis or like a Ridley. I'd love that. And you probably also draft someone in the second or third round if you don't end up using these comp picks that you're getting on a quarterback. You probably end up getting a wide receiver with one of those picks. I really wanted, Tyler, what's his face that went to the Bears? I don't think his name was Tyler Davis, but the guy that the Bears drafted mid rounds last year out of Cincinnati because he was Ritter's number one receiver. And I said we still needed one more wide receiver in the room. That's what I really wanted. I do think Van Jefferson comes back though, just because we hired all those guys from the Rams. I think there's a little bit of familiarity there, so I think that he's probably the highest likelihood to come back. Scotty Miller, Matt Collins, But and I love the point you made about the safety market because I did not have the Falcons paying another safety this offseason in my cards. I thought, you know what? They like where they're at with AJ. You get another corner who's solidified next to him, and then you got Jesse. You can live with one more year with Richie Grant, especially if he stops giving up the big plays. That's his big issue, the big plays. He's fine keeping guys in front of him. But I thought, they'll be fine just giving him one more year if they add another corner. But as you said, with all the safeties on the market, they might not have to pay him big money. So that opens up the door for the Falcons to have the best secondary in the league on paper. And you do that, you don't need 60 sacks a year because, they help each other out. We're already starting with the linebacker core. Troy Anderson's coming back. We'll see if he actually plays this year. You got Caden. You got Nate. They'll probably sign or draft somebody else. Linebackers, I kind of trust. I kind of learned that we don't really need them as much as we think last year. D-line, I expect an uptick in Arnold Ebiketie. I expect an uptick in Zach Harrison. But I definitely think you still need another rookie and probably another big impact guy. Would love Daniel Hunter. I think he's the most realistic one for us. I would have loved if Brian Burns hit the market, but he's not going to be traded from the Falcons to the Panthers. It's just not going to happen. Chase Young, Josh Allen sucks he was tagged. Nielsen's going to love him. The one in Jacksonville, of course. But yeah, I think that's a lot of where we're at. Trying to think if there's anything else. Cordell, I'd love you back too. Their running back wouldn't need anybody if that's the case. But I'll end our last thing on the night. One more question for you, Micah. How many Saints are we poaching this offseason? Give me a number. 2, 3, 4. How many are we signing this offseason? How many former Saints are we acquiring? Marcus Davenport counts. Chauncey Gardner Johnson counts. How many former Saints are the Falcons adding to this roster by preseason next year, Mr. Neal?
If those two are the two the two former Saints that we poach out, I'd be so happy, especially with CJ. But the way Terry's been going the past couple of years, two is at least two. We know he's going for at least two of them.
Love it. Love it. All right, guys. Well, welcome back to Around the A. Michael, we'll see that. Let's do this again next week, right? And we'll
Yes,
see you guys
sir.
next week. We're going to talk about our free agents and the start of the new league year. We're going to talk more in depth about Gardner Minshew and why the Falcons need to sign him no matter what they do with QB1. We'll talk more about the rookies in depth, whatever else comes up in the next week of news, and anything else that you'd like to add regarding next week's show before we sign us out for the evening, Mr. Neal.
I feel like we touched on it all. Subscribe, like, share, and like I always say, let us know in the comments what y'all like about the show.
You
We,
like the
we
new
all
speed? Did we do good?
Yep.
It'll be
We
quicker
all
than
we
this, too. This
always
is our first one. Yeah.
we always appreciate the support, always looking, and appreciate the viewers. We appreciate the subscribers.
Yeah, I mean, appreciate it, guys. Whatever you're watching it on, whether it's a clip out of us on TikTok, follow us on Twitter below at, Micah TYN and at Newsman Sports ATL. We love talking ball with you guys. Make sure you guys give us a follow. I'm posting more Braves and Falcons and Hawks Twitter spaces, so you guys make sure you give me a follow. Make sure you give Micah a follow, too. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon. I'll definitely be tweeting this out. Appreciate you guys. We'll see if this is chunked up in portions or not, but we'll see you guys next week, and we'll do this all over again. And again, the more shows we get, the shorter they'll get because they'll be more frequent. And so if you liked hour 20 after not talking for a couple months, you guys are really going to love the 45-minute shows. That's a goal for us, Micah. We got some new crew members coming in for you guys soon. We definitely got more Braves coverage this year. Micah and I will try to get more Hawks coverage. We didn't mean to ignore them this year. They do kind of suck. But we'll see you guys next week. So we thank you guys, and we appreciate everything. Summer's coming. Baseball's back, and it means that Micah and I have more free time for shows like this. Peace out. Go A-Town. Blake and Micah out. Any last words, Mr. Neal?
Rise up.
F the same.